My first experience playing video games was back on Windows 95. We had a bundle of games that came with our first family computer that included the original Command & Conquer, Magic Carpet 2, FIFA 97, and Theme Hospital.
And I've loved video games ever since, and have live streamed me playing them a bunch, and while becoming a dad has definitely cut into my gaming time, recently I've gotten back into them, playing a lot of Planet Crafter and the classic Pharaoh on my lunch breaks. But like most people, I associate games with being, well, fun, but separate from the trying to make the world a better place part of my life and my job. But for the first 2 weeks of December, that isn't true, because you can get hundreds of pounds worth of games for yourself or for someone else for just a £35 donation that will protect vital ecosystems on the verge of collapse and tackle huge climate challenges. You see, climate change is largely a linear process. The more carbon you put into the atmosphere, the more the world warms and the more impacts, like more extreme weather events, that we experience. But in addition to this, there are parts of the Earth system that we believe are highly non-linear, and past a certain level of warming, they will suddenly and irreversibly, on human timescales, flip into a different state. We call these tipping points, the most famous example being the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, or AMOC, which is a conveyor belt of warm water that currently keeps Western Europe warmer than it otherwise would be. It is fiendishly difficult to predict, but scientists are confident that at a level of warming, likely between 1.5 and 3 degrees Celsius, the AMOC will abruptly shut down. And this will massively reduce temperatures in Western Europe and have global impacts on sea level rise, agricultural output, and much more. But another tipping point that we are already perilously close to reaching is in the Amazon rainforest.
We learned that from the 2025 Global Tipping Points report, led by the University of Exeter, with support from, among others, the Worldwide Fund for Nature, or the WWF.
To learn more about the Amazonian tipping point then, I went to the WWF's UK headquarters in Woking.
We know the Amazon produces its own rainfall. The rain comes in, it drops, it transpires, it moves across. We know in parts of southern Amazonia, the rain season starts 1 month later than it used to, which impacts crops and people's livelihoods as well. So we know in parts of the Amazon where we have seen deforestation, those systems are drying out. The status of the forest has changed such that they are now carbon sources as opposed to the carbon sinks that they once were.
There's huge uncertainty in the modeling, but current deforestation in the Amazon is at 18%, so 18% of the Amazon has been deforested already, and this then is combined and exacerbated by climate change. We will most likely surpass the 1.5, so we are now in a trajectory of 1.5 to 2 degrees. These two things combined, and some of the modeling predicts once we reach 20 to 25% deforestation, the Amazon rainforest will reach the tipping point.
That moment whereby suddenly the forest will transition, not across the whole of the biome, but large chunks of it will transition to a degraded forest state. What that means is, if you have that degraded state, it will tend to dry out more, which means it then becomes more prone to forest fires. Don't forget, rainforests don't burn. If you have forests, they have been set by people. And so you have that cycle where you're then putting more carbon dioxide in, or greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, the forests dry out even more, they're more prone to fire, and so the cycle becomes perpetual. In the past, the models tended to look at deforestation as that is the trigger for a tipping point, but we know it's more complicated than that.
And given that the Amazon is such an important carbon sink, this tipping point being reached would accelerate future global warming.
But more than that, it would see the irreversible loss of species in the richest terrestrial ecosystem on Earth, and have huge impacts on tens or hundreds of millions of people.
And while you may have made the connection between climate change driving the loss of species, you may not have made the connection in the other direction. Loss of biodiversity drives climate change.
Species like toucan, tapirs, deer, they tend to eat fruits. By eating fruits, they help disperse seeds. And those seeds tend to be of larger trees. So by having those animals in those forests, we can ensure healthy regeneration and that larger tree species continue to exist in forests. And those tree species can hold more carbon. So there's been some studies and modeling showing that if we lose those species or they decrease due to hunting, due to the illegal wildlife trade, forests could hold something like 10 or 12% less carbons across the tropics. This, of course, it's a modeling exercise, but it just gives an idea on the role of both trees, but also animal species within those forests.
It's for this reason that while you may think of the WWF as a conservation charity, the critical link between biodiversity and climate means they're doing much more than just that.
WWF is the largest environmental organisation in the world, but what it tries to do is balance three current and important crises on the planet. It's about trying to restore nature, giving nature the space to recover. It's about trying to keep within safe climate levels, so keeping below 1.5 degrees. And it's trying to do those two things in a way that meets the needs of a growing human population.
So what does all this have to do with gaming? Well, the 2025 Jingle Jam has partnered with the WWF to raise funds. If you're not aware, the Jingle Jam is an annual charity gaming event that has run since 2011 and raised over £27 million for charity. And it's done this every year by offering a collection of games in exchange for a donation. This year, if you donate at least £35, you get codes for
Ixion, Mouthwashing, Tower Unite, The Royal Writ, Corekeeper, Dungeons of Hinterberg, and the one I'm most looking forward to playing, Warhammer 40,000 Chaos Gate Demon Hunters. We got a 40k game!
And even more. I don't have the time to say the names of all of the games or all of the extra stuff in the collection, which, for example, includes a discount for Displate. It's the highest rated Jingle Jam collection on Steam ever, and it can be yours, or because these are codes, a present for someone else, for just £35 at a link in this QR code or down in the description. But you only have until December 14th to get the collection. So this QR code within the next 2 weeks. Go. Now. All of the funds donated on that page go to the WWF and the work they are doing. But what do large organizations like the WWF actually do, and how will your donation help? To close out this video, I want to briefly tell you about 3 areas where the WWF is making a difference.
Firstly, the Amazon.
Some of the key work that we do in the Amazon, for example, is strengthening existing protected areas and indigenous lands. For example, WWF Brazil, in the last 5 years, they have helped strengthen the management and the protection of something like 220 million hectares. That's like 9 times the size of the UK. So huge numbers. But that's not enough. We need to work outside of protected areas as well. So we are constantly working both with companies and with producers, with communities to improve practices, agricultural practices, how we produce food and commodities. Restoration, sometimes it's not so relevant for the Amazon because you have so much forest standing, but in other parts of Latin America, like the Atlantic forest, we need restoration as well. So that's another part of our work. And then policy. Policy is absolutely crucial to scale up the impact that we have on the ground. And again, just in Brazil alone, we were able to influence over 60 policies and legal instruments in the last 5 years. So these are some of the wins and the successes.
Secondly, the high seas.
Each maritime nation has its own kind of area over which it has responsibilities, its economic zone. Beyond that, essentially, it's these high seas, that's the Wild West. What the High Seas Treaty has done, and as of September of this year, it finally came into effect. It says, no, these are global goods. And so we have to globally make sure they are governed wisely and they're governed for the good of everyone. So that will dictate everything from where you put your marine protected areas, what you do for shipping routes, what does it mean in terms of fish offtake and fishing volumes. But WWF have been absolutely front and center in pushing to get that delivered.
And thirdly, coral reefs.
If you heard news coverage of the Global Tipping Points report, you probably heard the devastating news that we may have already hit the first global tipping point. The oceans have now absorbed so much extra heat, the warm water corals are in terminal decline, with huge economic implications for hundreds of millions of people who depend on those reefs and the species that live there. Even if we exceed 1.5 degrees of warming and then bring it back down, we're still looking at 80% of warm water corals being lost. But
just think about what we just said, that was 80% might be lost. It means that 10 or 20% might not be lost. These could essentially become what we call regeneration reefs. These can be the source for future regeneration if we see sense on this planet and manage to get temperatures below 1.5 degrees and see that restoration of nature. They're the bedrock, literally, of corals going forward. And it's based on a whole plethora of things. What's their risk to temperature change, cyclone impact? Are they close to ocean currents, which will allow the larvae to move from place A to place B to allow that colonization of previous reefs?
So when you get the collection of games, games, at the link in the description or in this QR code, you are supporting conservation work. The WWF's work with partners, indigenous people and local communities to protect species and ecosystems in the short term, especially in critical areas like the Amazon, as well as the high-level legislative stuff, working with businesses and governments to stop the drivers of nature loss and climate change in the long term. This is such important work that needs to happen now, and it deserves your support.
So we're extremely grateful for the support from Jingle Jam. Conservation takes time and success takes time.
We know you can put your money anywhere, but anything you can give would make so much difference to our work and to making the world a safer and better place for everybody.
I should also say that alongside the collection of games, people are streaming every day of the Jingle Jam. Here's the slightly insane list of people involved. I'm going to be running my traditional quiz stream at 5 p.m. UK time on Saturday the 6th on twitch.tv/yogscast, but I'm also going to be streaming on twitch.tv/Dr. Simon Clark. At the time of recording, those details aren't finalized yet, so here they hopefully are. The important link though, one more time, is at the top of the description and on screen right now. Get yourself a bunch of cool games, support vital work addressing climate tipping points, and show your parents that those damn video games aren't actually all that bad.